Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Please hit that like button and share and subscribe because it really helps. We are on the Water of Life story by, well, it's similar to the brothers Grimm, of course. Once upon a time, there was a king who had become quite sick. Nothing would make him better, and he had 3 sons. The 3 sons went to the courtyard and cried because their father was dying. An old man was in the courtyard, and the old man said, "Why are you so glum and crying?" And they explained how their father was dying. He was in great danger. Nothing could save him, and he would probably die. So the elderly man explained to the princes that the king could be saved. This required the water of life. However, the water of life could only be obtained from a particular place, and of course there were dangers. The eldest son proudly went to the king, for he wanted to go and get the water of life, thinking if he got it and brought it back, he would most certainly have the kingdom. So he begged and pleaded with the king, and at first the king said no. Of course, after a while of begging, the king did agree for the eldest son to go and get the water of life. So the eldest son set off, and upon the path there was a dwarf, and the dwarf did speak to him. Unfortunately, the eldest was not so proud, and when the dwarf said, "Whither away so fast?" as in to ask where he was going, "Stupid little fellow," said the prince, "what business is it of yours?" And he rode on. This made the dwarf angry, and he thought that he would get his revenge, and made an evil vow. So when the prince, the eldest that is, came to a gorge in the mountains, he went further and further, but the gorge just became more narrow, until eventually it was too narrow for him to go forward, but his horse would not go backwards. Therefore he could not dismount the horse, and he was stuck, sat on the horse. Back home, the king was still sick, and the second son had realised that the first one had not come back. The eldest was still missing. So the middle son, the second one, said, "Father, he has not returned with the water of life. I should go and find what's been happening," thinking to himself that if he went, he would surely get the kingdom, because his brother was obviously dead. Again, the king did decline, but eventually he gave in. And again, the middle brother rode the same way. And again, he came across the dwarf. The dwarf asked where he was going in a hurry. And the prince did reply, "Little snippet, what does it matter to you?" The dwarf also cast a spell over him, and the middle son went the same way as the eldest, straight down the gorge till it was narrow and narrow and narrow, and again the horse could not go forward and it would not go backwards, leaving the middle prince sat just as his eldest was. Now, only the youngest was there at the castle, and so he asked his father, "I need to go and get this water of life for you, because the others have not returned. At least then I can see where they have gone." And of course, the king did oblige him to go, because there was only him left, and he had no idea where his sons were. However, when the youngest prince, the third one, met the dwarf, and the dwarf asked him why he was in a hurry, where he was going, he stopped and said to the dwarf, "I'm searching for the water of life because my father is dying." The dwarf said, "Do you know where it can be found?" "No," said the youngest prince. "As you have spoken pleasantly to me, and you've not been haughty like your false brothers, I will help and tell you about the water of life. It flows from a fountain in a courtyard of an enchanter castle. But You will never get in unless I give you the iron rod and 2 loaves of bread. With the iron rod, strike the gate 3 times, and it will swing open. Beside, when you get in, you will see 2 lions with their jaws wide open. Throw in the loaves, and they will be quiet. Then you must make haste. You must get the water of life before it strikes 12, or the gates of the castle will close, and you will be shut in forever." The prince thanked the dwarf, and then he rode on, took the rod, took the loaves, and set off. When he reached the castle, he did everything that the dwarf had told him to, and as soon as he did the 3rd knock, the gates swung open, and he threw the loaves to the lions. That kept them nice and quiet. In the great hall, he found several enchanted princes, and he took the rings from their fingers. He also took a sword and a loaf, which were lying just by them. On passing into the next room, he found a beautiful maiden, who rejoiced at his coming. She embraced him and said that he had saved her, and should have the whole of her kingdom, and if he would come back in a year, she would marry him. She told him where to find the fountains with the enchanted water, but she also said that he should make haste before the castle and not stay when the clock struck midnight. Then he went on. He did come to a room where there was a nice, beautiful bed made, and he thought he would get a nap, and he fell asleep. As he fell asleep, not realizing, he woke to a clock striking 11:15, and he sprung up in complete fright. He ran to the fountain, took some of the water in the cup, which was lying near, this goblet was lying near the fountain. He filled it up, and he reached the gate just in time, as it banged behind him so quickly it took a bit of his heel off. He was rejoiced that he had got the water of life, and he wasted no time going homebound. He again passed the dwarf, who said, when he saw the sword and the loaf, "Those things will be of much service to you. You will be able to strike down whole armies with the sword, and the loaf will never end, it will feed forever." The prince did not want to go on without his brothers. The good dwarf did warn him that he probably was not to trust his brothers, for they were full of spite, but he did tell them where they could be found. He went and he rescued his brothers. The dwarf did warn him yet again, "Beware of them, they have bad hearts." He was, however, delighted when his brothers came back, and he told them all the story of what had happened regarding the princess, the dwarf, the rings on the fingers, the sword, the loaf, and of course he had the water of life. Now, as they were riding back home, they did have to go through particular kingdoms. They come to a land and it was raging with war and famine. The thing was, the king thought that his whole kingdom was going to be utterly ruined and devastated because the war and famine was so bad. The prince went to this king and gave him the loaf. With that loaf, he fed the entire kingdom. The prince also gave him his sword, and he smote the whole army with that one sword. Then he was able to live in peace and quiet. Then the prince took his loaf and his sword back and carried on. But the problem was, they had to pass another 2 kingdoms the same way. And again, he gave the king the loaf and the sword, and it was repeated 3 times that the brother had saved 3 kingdoms, the youngest brother, for he was the one who owned the items. To get back home, they needed to get a boat. So they got to the boat after they had saved 3 kingdoms. And on that ship, the 2 elder brothers started conspiring that how stupid they would look that the youngest brother had got the water of life, and he would surely gain everything and they would end up with nothing. So obviously, as vindictive as they were, they had made up their minds what to do. They waited till he was asleep. They emptied the water of life from his goblet and took it upon themselves to fill it with sea salt. nothing but sea salt. As soon as they got home, the youngest prince took the goblet straight to his father, and he sipped the water and became more ill. Obviously, wailing, and the youngest not sure what was happening, the two elder brothers came in, and they said that he had not got the water of life, the youngest. He was lying, and they had truly got the water of life, and that the youngest brother had tried to poison his own father. It was them who found the water of life, not him. Now, when all had been said and done, and the king was well again, as well as one could be, almost feeling like he was in his youth, the two brothers took the youngest brother to side and mocked him, saying, "It was you who found the water of life. You had all the trouble, and we had the reward. You should have been wiser and kept your eyes open. We stole it from you in the ship while you were asleep. When the end of the year comes, one of us will go and bring away the beautiful princess. But don't dare betray us. Our father will most certainly believe us, not you. He would never believe a single word of what you had to say." The old king was angry with his youngest and believed that he had tried to poison him. So he held a court. They would decide the judgment of the youngest. They met, and judgment was made. One day, when the prince was going out hunting, thinking no evil, the king's huntsman was ordered to go with him. Seeing the huntsman look sad, the prince said to him, "My good huntsman, what's the matter with you?" The huntsman answered, "I can't bear to tell you, yet I must." The prince said, "Say it out. Whatever it is, I will forgive you." "Alas," said the huntsman, "I am to strike you dead down on the king's command." The prince was horror-stricken and said, "Dear huntsman, do not kill me. Please spare me my life. Let me have your dress, and you shall have my royal robes." The huntsman said, "I will gladly do so. I could never ever harm you." So they exchanged clothes, and the huntsman went home. But the prince wandered away into the forest. After time had gone on, 3 wagons full of gold and precious stones came to the king for his youngest son. They were sent by the kings that had been saved by the prince's sword and the loaves. And this, obviously, really did confuse the king very much, because they had come to show their gratitude to the youngest, not the eldest. Then the old king thought, what if my son was really innocent? And he said to his people, "If only he was still alive. How sorry I am that I ordered him to be killed." "He is still alive," said the huntsman. "I could not find it in my heart to hurt him, and he is still out there." This is when the king put out commands, and he told the whole place that to be on the lookout for his son. He wanted him to come home so that he could be received in great favour. In the meantime, the princess had caused a road made of pure gold leading to the castle, and she told the people that whoever rode straight along it would be the true bridegroom. If anyone came and rode at either side, do not let them in, because they are false. When the year had almost passed, the eldest prince thought, I will happily now marry that princess, and I should hurry. And by giving himself deliverance, off he went to gain himself a wife and a kingdom. So he rode away, and when he saw the beautiful golden road, thought it would be 1,000 pities to ride upon it. So he turned aside, and he rode to the right of it. When he reached the gate, the people told him that he was not the true bridegroom, and he was sent on his way. Then the second prince came, and he saw the golden road, and thought it would be 1,000 pities for his horse to tread upon it. So he turned aside, and he rode up the left of it. When he reached the gate, he was told he was not the true bridegroom, and he was sent away. When the year had quite nearly come to an end, the third prince came out of the wood to ride to his beloved, and he never forgot about her, and he could leave his past sorrows. So on he went, thinking only of her and wishing to be with her. He never even saw the golden road. His horse cantered right along the middle of it, and when he reached the gate it flung open, and the princess received him joyfully and called him her deliverer and the lord of the kingdom. Their marriage was celebrated without delay and with much rejoicing. When it was over, they told him that his father had called for him and that he was completely forgiven, and that his father knew that it wasn't him and he should go home immediately. So he went. He went to his father and told him everything of how the brothers had deceived him and how they had forced him to keep silent. The old king wanted to punish them, but they had taken a ship and sailed away to sea, and they were never heard from again, nor did they ever come back as long as they both lived. The end. That's the story, mostly not completely Brothers Grimm, but very similar to the Brothers Grimm, The Water of Life. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.